Thank you, Kerry, and welcome everyone. Once again, my name's Tom Mabbett. I'm one of the operations managers. I'm sure lots of you have seen me speaking before. Look out for a whole range of tours, of course, all across the world. But as Kerry said, this evening we're focusing on the wonderful wildlife that we have here in the British Isles, and I'm going to be focusing on, first of all, the wonderful Forest of Dean, and then move on to the Somerset levels. And the Forest of Dean it's not really my home patch. I'm talking to you from Cheltenham now, so it's around about 40-minute drive from Cheltenham, the Forest of Dean. I've spent a lot of time there. When I joined Naturetrek in 2013, I set up the 2-night tour to the Forest of Dean that we run in the winter and the spring, which has proved very popular, looking for all the wonderful bird life and some great mammals as well. And it's just a brilliant place. So the Forest of Dean is the second largest sort of tract of ancient forest in England, second to the New Forest, and it's around 45 square miles of forest in western Gloucestershire, and it's a really special place. It's pretty much a mix of an equal split of deciduous and coniferous forests. Lots of brilliant food trees for the birds coming in the winter, and it has some very special species returning, very soon, around now, returning to the forest to breed. So we base ourselves for the Forest of Dean tour at the Speech House Hotel, right in the heart of the forest. There's very little driving on this tour. It's one of the things that elements I really enjoy about it. You can see so much just walking out the front of the hotel. Lovely walks, just without barely heading anywhere. Lots of open glades, sort of heathland. Obviously, there's amazing forest walks. Lakes and streams, lots of different habitats, and so many brilliant species to find. Here is a photo of the Speech House Hotel. Very ancient, very old hotel used by the verderers for many hundreds of years to sort of make rulings and decisions on what happens in the forest, and that still happens to this day. It's a nice scenic of the forest. As I said, it's pretty much a split of coniferous and deciduous woodland, and lots of lovely walks to enjoy. One of the things I like, particularly on the winter tours, is just getting to grips with the common species. There's some star species I've come to, but I always carry around a bag of seed with me on the winter trips, and we'll head to a spot and I'll just throw down some seed and just watch all the woodland birds piling in around your feet. Nuthatch here, beautiful nuthatch that comes in. They're often so tame, just hopping around your feet, and a really brilliant chance to see some of these species very, very close up and in great numbers, particularly on our winter tours. We'll get to grips with the sort of more common woodland tit species. Marsh tit here. I'm watching all the other tit species pile in on the seed is great. There'll be tree creepers in such great numbers. Often people comment, blimey, I've seen more tree creepers on this weekend tour than I've seen in my life before. They just seem to be everywhere. And there's just a really great density of your sort of more common woodland birds. So in the winter months, it's probably been more popular this tour in the winter. It's brilliant in all seasons, but we probably run more departures in the winter. And it's a feature of the winter tours are the sort of finch species. There's a beautiful male siskin here feeding on an alder. And there's lots of what I call the sort of the good food trees, alders and yew and hornbeam and beech. And these food trees really attract the finches in the winter. So these birds will pile in from Europe and make the most of the bounty that can be found in the Forest of Dean. And we'll often find big flocks of chattering siskins with redpolls in amongst them as well often. It's great fun. The forest can just be alive with the noise of the flight calls of finches. Brilliant opportunity to learn the different flight calls of the birds we're hearing and find them feeding as well. And one of the birds I've probably spent more time tracking down in my life than any other is probably the wonderful hawfinch. And I absolutely love hawfinch. Brilliant bird, and really cracking chance of seeing them in the Forest of Dean. I'm not sure we've ever missed hawfinch on our winter tours. So again, they breed in the forest in pretty good numbers. They sort of nest in sort of loose colonies. You often have sort of 2 or 3, 4 nests, fairly close to each other, little clusters of them, and but their numbers are bolstered, in the winter months, with birds coming in from Europe. So the UK's largest finch species, of course, is big, heavy, silvery bill. This is a male here with a sort of more bright, gingery golden head. and that whacking great bill is strong enough to get through, crack through even a cherry stone. But if you find the yew trees in particular and the hornbeam and beech, you've got a great chance of finding hawfinch. On day trips this winter had, a flock in excess of 30 birds. I think 32 was the maximum count on day trip this winter. So yeah, fantastic bird. Crossbill as well is a real feature, and pretty much at any time of year. They breed quite early in the year. It's got a good chance of very good chance of finding them. So this is a male, beautiful brick red color, and then the females that sort of greeny, yellowy color. This one just teasing out a seed from this larch cone here. Brilliant birds, almost parrot-like the way they sort of clamber around the branches and hold the cones with their feet there. Brilliant birds. Bramblings will come in. Been a very good winter for bramblings actually this winter. In varying numbers. Some winters, you'll be scratching around trying to find brambling. Other winters, they'll be all over the place. It's been very good for them this year, coming in from Europe and just spending the winter here. Beautiful male, brambling here. Lovely bird with that the orangey wash there on the upper breast there. Lovely. Great grey shrike we might find most winters. Actually, unfortunately, this winter, first time in I think 5 winters that we couldn't find one. It's not been a good winter actually for a great grey shrike sort of nationwide this winter. But generally speaking, we have great success with finding great grey shrike out on the glades in the forest. And it's been really fascinating returning to the glade and finding the area where they larder their prey, known as the butcher bird, of course. So they'll make hay while the sun shines. They'll catch lots of various different prey items and larder that prey for when times are trickier, some harsh weather hits, and they'll have that larder of food to fall back on. So this is a photo taken by a group member on one of the day trips the winter before this. I think it was a vole. It was definitely some mammal species that have been impaled here. And there's a couple of little blackthorn bushes over the years that is just, you can almost guarantee you're going to find some remains of some poor and unfortunate animals. This is almost certainly a wood mouse with the length of that tail there. But in these bushes, I've found bees, newts, lizards, stone chat, siskin, goldfinch. The shrikes really feed on quite a very wide range of different species. Very varied diet, and it's fascinating each visit trying to figure out what exactly has been impaled, and they'll return to these areas to feed. So a real feature of a visit in the winter is trying to find the wonderful great grey shrike. Lesser spotted woodpecker at the start of the weekend was, I often will say, what are you most hoping to see, and get to grips with what people are after. And lesser spotted woodpecker tends to crop up, and they breed in the forest still in pretty good numbers, but of course they're very, very tricky to find. About the size of a sparrow, and just brilliant little bird. You can just see a little bit of red on the crown here, making this a male. And it really takes, now is prime time for finding lesser spotted woodpeckers. Getting out very early. They tend to stop drumming and calling, often before 8 o'clock in my experience even, and not much after that. And to get out and try and find them now is the time. We'll visit Simmons Yachts. There's a beautiful view along the Wye here. And when I was at school, this was the place to go to see peregrines. We're now blessed with them in lots of our towns and cities. But this was the place to see peregrine. We'll visit to see the pair that breed there every year, and goshawk often displaying over the woodlands, particularly during the February, March time around now. It's a cracking place to spend a bit of time. Beautiful peregrine falcon there. What a bird. Onto the mammals, wild boar is very, very high on the wish list of anyone visiting the Forest of Dean. And there are species that are don't go down too well with the locals, but visitors love them. And I love them every time I see one. It's a thrill. There's thought to be around 1,200 animals now. They were released. Around 20 of them were released in 1999, was the date that they put on the initial sort of release of a few animals. And it used to be very exciting to find an area of grass that had been turned over by wild boar, but now it's almost unusual to find an area that hasn't been turned over by wild boar. But saying that, they're still pretty tricky to find. Often people are surprised. They are very much wild, and they will charge away at any sign of humans and hide away. And it tends to be that we have to get out after dark spotlighting for them, just driving around with a pretty powerful torch, shining around and trying to find boar. This is a big sow here. You can see where she's turned over the ground. But always exciting getting out at night, a night drive around the Forest of Dean for wild boar. They've also released another exciting mammal I don't have a photo of, but they've released pine marten in the Forest of Dean as well. So there's which are being very closely monitored and are doing well. So that could be a feature of a future tour maybe in a few years. But a few more sightings starting to happen with pine marten. We'll like to see fallow deer. It's the dominant deer species. Roe and muntjac just moving in the last few years from farm, more sort of farmland, open ground outside the forest. And in the spring, we're going to have species such as pied flycatcher here returning to breed. Wood warbler, a beautiful cascading song that they make. Redstart, and lots of these species that will have wintered in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, and then moved back to the forest to breed. What a stunning bird the male redstart is. A bird that's been done very well is the firecrest. Its range has sort of increased. It's doing well, across the country. Used to be very rare in the forest. Now breeds in very good numbers as its range is moving. Certainly moving north. It used to be very much right in the south species, but doing very well. And a real feature of our summer tours is getting out onto a glade at night and listening and watching out for the wonderful nightjar. This was from a day trip, last summer. And got lucky always scan the stumps, try luck scanning the tree stumps, and it paid off on this evening. Lovely view of one perched, and the males get up and make that beautiful churring sound and will float overhead with those white wing flashes and wing clapping. And what a brilliant bird. Often woodcock roading as well, so it's a fantastic experience. Butterflies we hope to encounter in the spring and summer are wood white here, and also small pearl-bordered fritillary, just two of the star species, and also adder. Always include a snake slide on my talks, and this is it for tonight. This is a young male adder that we encountered. February, March is a very good time, just coming out of the hibernation, and we often see them in those months. So that's the Forest of Dean in a nutshell. We run winter and spring and summer visits for 2 nighs. And we also run 2-night tours to the Somerset levels across the winter and the spring and summer months as well. Just down the road in the Somerset levels. And actually, recently we have a tour that combines the both of them. It's actually 3 nights in each location, and it gives you a wonderful, range of species and covering a really diverse range of habitats on that one. So the Somerset levels really reminds me quite a bit of the Camargue in southwestern France. I've been lucky to lead a few tours out there, and the levels just keep getting better year on year for me. Lots of different reserves managed by different organisations, the RSPB, the Wildlife Trusts, Natural England, and they're really going from strength to strength, and it's a brilliant place. It's a vast open reed beds and waterways, and lots of these islands created when they were former peat excavations on some of these sites that have been now turned into nature reserves. They've created lots of these islands you can see here. That's perfect for breeding birds. Predators can't get there and find the nests, and the wildlife just goes from just booms. Pardon the pun. So where are we? We base ourselves in Wells, and we're really the Somerset Levels is really a vast floodplain of these 3 rivers: the River Axe, the River Brew, and the River Parrett, which of course are the area is designed to flood every winter, and it brings in lots of waders and wildfowl, and it's superb across the seasons. Really, we base ourselves in Wells, just opposite the cathedral, in Wells, and it's this bird is a feature of the winter tours. Of course, most people that visit in the winter have this species on their mind, the starling, and what a lovely bird it is. Very underrated species. Look at the plumage there of a beautiful starling. But the draw of the Somerset Levels is the largest starling roost in the country, sometimes numbering up to 1 million birds. So to see that number together, often in the sort of 6, 7, 800,000 birds, sometimes even getting up to around 1 million, absolutely incredible, is one of the UK's, undoubtedly one of the UK's sort of finest wildlife spectacles. It differs on every visit. I've been many times to see the starlings there, and Some evenings I'll come straight into the reeds fairly quickly, piling in low. Other times I make these amazing murmurations where they'll dance and twist and turn, make these incredible shapes in the sky before diving into the reed beds. Absolutely amazing. And I highly recommend that if you haven't done it. And then we'll return in the morning and watch the starlings burst out of the reeds, the morning rise, and they'll just dart off in every direction. And the noise and the whole experience of returning early in the morning is as impressive for me as the evening, and we make an effort to do that for those that are keen to get up very, very early. But it's what an amazing experience going and seeing starlings performing like that, roosting and leaving their roost. As I said, it's brilliant for wildfowl. I've got a real soft spot for wildfowl. I worked at Slimbridge for a short time, and I love my wildfowl. Flock of widgeon here, of course. And this is sort of a classic scene at some of the reserves. Big numbers of your sort of dabbling ducks. There's gadwall here, shoveler, teal, widgeon. There's probably a pintail lurking around in there somewhere. Beautiful drake pintail, very, very good for your wildfowl, and some waders as well. Big numbers of golden plover and lapwing as well in the winter months. Bearded tit are doing much better year on year as the reed beds are developing and getting older, more mature. We're seeing bearded tits more often on our visits to the Somerset levels, and common crane as well. It was actually while I was working at Slimbridge back in 2008, 2009, when they were doing the Great Crane Project, they called it, where the eggs were brought in from Germany. The crane were reared at Slimbridge and then released onto the Somerset levels. And there's now a population on the levels, and we can really hope and expect to see them on both our winter and our spring and summer visits to see these magnificent birds and that lovely call, that sort of bugling call as they fly over. Magnificent to have them back on the levels. Bitterns are doing well. Winter and summer is very good to see them. Probably more often, there's more numbers in the winter with birds coming from Europe, but they're more frequently seen in the spring and summer when they're breeding, when they're making flights over the reed beds more often. So a great chance of catching up with bittern. And as I said, it's like the Camargue. This is a little bittern. Took a photo of a number of years ago, and some rare species breed there. Lots of these sort of more European herons are now colonizing the levels. Great white egret, very commonly seen on the Somerset levels, as well as cattle egret as well. I think there's a record of 200-300 cattle egret recently on the levels. Quite incredible. It's really going well there. Marsh harrier is almost always very frequently seen scanning over the reed beds. In the spring and summer months, that's sort of covering the winter. We've got some tours coming up fairly soon, and we're going to be enjoying all the birds that have come here to breed, and the reed beds just become alive with the songs of lots of different species. And it's a brilliant trip if you want to get to grips with learn some more bird song. It's a super trip for that. So you have sedge warbler and reed warbler here, so they'll be blasting away in the reeds and hedgerows and thickets, and cuckoo as well will often turn. It's a lovely atmosphere when you turn up at first light onto some of these reserves on the Somerset levels and just listen to all those different all that different bird song. White throats, garden warblers, there'll be Chetty's warbler, cuckoo in calling, bitterns booming. It's a super experience. Gargany coming back, they're coming into the country now. When they pass through, and they thought small numbers will breed there. And in the summer months, it's very good for dragonflies. Sometimes see in excess of 12, 13 species frequently on our tours. This is variable damselfly here, four-spotted chaser, and scarce chaser as well. And we'll see lots of other species of dragonfly as we enjoy exploring these different reserves. And with them, with all the dragonflies, brings big numbers of hobbies. You can often see really high counts of hobbies, 20, 30 birds, even more than that on occasion, as they're passing through the levels, feeding on all these insects. So that's the Forest of Dean and the Somerset levels in a nutshell. Two brilliant destinations, and highly recommend a visit. I'm going to sneak in another destination now, another tour that's that we're about to launch. The sort of dates are advertised, but it's going out in our upcoming newsletter. So the tour to Suffolk to stay at Bawdsey Hall that featured on the recent Winter Watch series, and we're going to be staying, just taking over the place for a small Naturetrek group, and to explore this fantastic area, and to take advantage of their two fantastic hides and have exclusive use of these hides to see some of the nocturnal wildlife in particular. I call it Suffolk by night. So it's a new offering. We're always adding new ideas and new destinations to our portfolio, and this is just one of those. So I'll just run through a couple of really great photos I was sent recently, as I'm sort of writing up and developing this new tour. Really good chance of actually seeing polecat, which you might have seen featured on that on the Winter Watch series. We'll spend a couple of evenings. We won't spend all night, but we'll spend 2 evenings going on till sort of 11 o'clock midnight, maybe even later, to see what comes in around the pond they've got there in the area, to take some beautiful photos like this, and in the daytime just get out exploring and birding the local area. Beautiful shot of a badger there coming down to the pond in front of the hide. A bit of interaction there with fox and badger, and a cheeky little polecat looking up over at the badger there. So that's a new offering. It's going to be a 4-night tour. I'm exploring that fantastic area, just about 45-50 minutes south of Minsmere. Explore the reserves in the day, get out for night jars in the evening, and have a couple of sessions in these fantastic hides. That's a new one. So I'll leave you there. I'm going to hand over now. Thanks very much for listening, and hope you can join us on a tour in the future. Thank you.